I've seen you in a handful of podcasts. You've got a number of ways that you handle insults, but one of them is I see you saying, yes, I will match their energy and maybe return an insult, but I'm not going to fight or deny or struggle against the shitty bucket that you've put me in. Because I think, at that point now you're debating whether or not, I don't know, just somewhere you don't want to be in the conversation.
I usually bring something to an equal level. Like I think with Milo, what did I start digging on? The,
You went with the cancellation and the...
Something like that.
You eventually hit him with the cocaine in the bathroom.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I started to, There was something that I said, and the pedophile stuff. And then he was like, what did you say? And I was like, I said this. What do you want to say about it? And then he just like stared at me for 20 seconds and then continued on. Yeah.
Another common thing that I saw, you just had the Whatever podcast with about abortion. And in that, it echoed something I saw in the Milo, which was this, how dare you statement came up in both of them. How dare you?
Yeah.
And it seemed in both of them super disingenuous. And I'm just curious if you've sensed that in the moment, and you seem to just steam right through it.
I'll just laugh at it. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and like play games around some moral grandstanding. Like if I've actually mortally wounded or offended your psyche on some shit, like it needs to be some like really deep stuff. Like if I'm like making fun of a dead parent or like some tragedy, then I can understand that. But the like, how dare you do this politically? It's like the oldest trick in the book. And I'm like, we're not politicians here running for city council or something. Like this isn't going to do anything in this conversation with me.
It's crazy, but there is that, I don't suspect that the women that you were speaking with thought about this in advance, but there was a performative aspect. So people seem to intuit that when you're in a debate, you are performing. And one of the ways that you can win this performance is by assuming the role of victim incredibly powerfully. So like setting someone up to have hurt you in a way that is too grievous for you to continue. And I've seen even people that I respect, like Christopher Hitchens used to do this when he would talk about Christianity. How dare you say the blah, 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 and talk about all the evils at the feet of Christianity. And it is when the audience is
Stephen
stunned.
Fry did that same thing when somebody asked him, like, what would you say to God when you get to heaven? He's like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Child cancer? Yeah, I remember.
It's powerful, you know, and the demonstration of moral indignancy is an incredibly powerful thing, even though it shouldn't be a strong logical thing. So I'm curious how you think about debates, because clearly, well, maybe you don't think this, what wins a debate is not necessarily the best argument or the most sound logical approach to it. There is a bit of performance art that's going on. Is that something that you think about?
I wouldn't say that it's so much a performance art. I would say that there are multiple layers to a debate, and you don't only have to manage the logical discourse back and forth. You also have to manage the meta expectations of what's going on in the conversation as well. So I realized like about 20 or 30 minutes into that debate that this logically, I felt like I had the upper hand, because typically when people start engaging in like a lot of crazy argumentation, it's because they know they can't come back to you logically. So I knew logically I had the upper hand. So then the rest of the time I'm like writing this, I'm trying to figure out like, how do I manage this on a meta level? Because this is going to be like a shit show otherwise. So I'm trying to think like, do I need to go really hard on the insults? Should I start screaming at them and cut them off? Should I just be quiet and let them continue to interrupt me so I look good for the camera? Should I appeal to the moderator? Like I'm trying to think of like all these things as they're like shouting at me to figure out like
what did you come to? What was the sort of conclusion that you had?
At some point, there were a few points that I wanted to finish. So I'm like, I need to, if they're going to keep cutting me off, I'll let them cut me off for a while. But at some point I need to say like, I'm going to finish this. Let me finish this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to finish this. I did that a few times. When the one lady was like, I'm going to treat you like a child. I'm like, okay, I'll be a child then. Take my seat, like kind of like be a little bit mimi, fun with it or whatever.
Well, you yes-ended several of the insults, which I thought was...
Yeah, anytime somebody pulls out like, you're misogynistic, I'm like, yeah, I am.
And it's getting worse by the moment. You added to it, and it diffused it so quickly in that.
Yeah, before the cameras were rolling, I admit I'm a little edgy. I was being a little edgy too. But like one of the women across the table from me, I didn't know she was trying to set up something for the debate. She was like, I heard you defend the N-word in private. And I was like, oh, no, I defend it in public too. And she was like, why would you ever say that? And I'm like, well, sometimes black people just really piss me off. And then she didn't have anything else to say. And it was like, we just rolled into it. And like, I could tell both of them were like a little bit irked by the answer. Like, oh, I don't know. What do you want? Like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, we're not doing this right now.
But behind that is the sense that this is not a good faith engagement. So I'm not going to give you my actual justifications and reasons for some of these things. I'm going to play into the worst stereotype that you are implying that I fall into to kind of prove to you that you don't even care. You're just looking for some sort of moral victory. Or
a little bit. It's also like choosing, like it's like choosing your battle arena. if somebody is trying to pull you into a certain area, this is a huge problem I used to have. I don't know if this is ADHD or if it was just my like hubris, but generally when I'm having a debate with somebody, I'm usually pretty informed of the topic and I'm willing to follow them around anywhere they want to go. Like we can start a debate about Donald Trump and end up at the World Economic Forum, whatever. I'll go wherever you want to go because we can do that. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm confident. I know the material and that's fine. But when I realize this on a meta conversational level, what's actually happening is I'm not actually solidifying any wins in the eyes of any audience because anytime I'm getting close in one area, they'll pivot to another topic until invariably they will find something that I don't know much about and I'll get stumped on an issue. And then the first real L, because I'm not going to just pivot to something else if I don't know, I'll be like, okay, I'm not sure. I look like I've taken an L after an hour of them running from topic to topic to topic. So if somebody wants to drag me to a certain area, like, oh, you're a misogynist, I'm like, okay, and like I'll just like move past it because I don't want to have that fight right there, right now, because that's just not what I'm looking to have a battle over.
Yeah. And I've sensed, and I don't know if this is because you don't want to fight, but you have a way of not taking L's by employing the same thing, which somebody will say something and you'll just go, okay. You know, and there's this sense that you're communicating is, this is almost, I'm too tired of this. This is frustrating or beneath my intellectual engagement at this point.
A little bit, but you have to be careful with that too, because like something that I used to do that I've tried not to do as much is sometimes I'll be going down such a dumb line of argumentation and it's like so frustrating. At the end, I'll just be like, okay, sure.
Okay.
And then move on to the next thing. And maybe in the eyes of my audience, it looks like, okay, like obviously this guy's dumb, he's moving on. But I think to a neutral audience and to the other person's audience, it looks like I'm giving up because I know I've lost the point. So that's like a meta thing I have to manage as well. Like I can't do that. That's why, I don't know if I did any abortion debate. I think I did, but after somebody finishes a ramble, I try not to let people just finish their thing and be like, okay, I usually, and I think I might have even explicitly said, I can't let them just do their whole thing and get their point off. Like I am going to restate my argument until we move on to the next thing. Because if I just let them restate and I go, okay, fine, and we move on, it's going to look to the audience like I'm agreeing with them or I've like given up arguing my point, you know?
Yeah. And within all of this is the idea that you're not taking steps to open your interlocutor up as much as possible. You understand that the goal is not like they're probably, because we're on camera and representing an organization, have an entrenched position that is not going to move. We're not going to cover new ground in their mind. They're going to fight that.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to an audience who is responding to, there's a bit of like power cues in this. Who's taking L's, who's winning, and that is how they're forming their worldview from a place of a bit more receptivity because they're sitting in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah. Like if I'm arguing about topic X with a person who's the head of organization, we support X to the death.
Yeah.
Like you're not changing your mind. I'm not gonna have a debate with Donald Trump and convince him to be a Democrat. I'm not gonna have a debate with Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton and convince them to, you know, be a free market absolutist, capitalist like Republican. Like, yeah. So I understand people in certain positions of influence or ideological organization are going to suffer some degree of audience capture to where they're expected to give certain answers and they have to give certain answers and there's no maneuverability in there for them. So I'm just there to explore how deeply have you thought about this. And then once I've hit that rock bottom, I make my case to the audience, then we kind of move on.
Do you feel that present in your streams, audience capture for you?
Absolutely not. My audience hates some of the takes that I have.
Okay.
To this day, some of my takes from my audience are really unpopular. But I'm not like ideologically owned by anything. So I have a lot more flexibility to kind of like grow and change and move. Like I call myself like the omni-liberal because I'm like, broadly speaking, I'm a liberal, but I try to take like good positions from other people. Like I like guns a lot. I'm a very big proponent of like self-defense and defense of property. I'm really big on like expanded taxation for good social programs. Like I've got like a lot of views all over the place, but I justify them all from like an internal schema that I make available to the public. And yeah, I don't have to worry about like, if somebody brings me up a really good argument for like, Steven, I know that you like guns a lot, but here are really compelling reasons why we should probably get rid of guns. I'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll probably change my mind on it then. That's a good argument. Like I'm not like an NRA card-carrying member or like a Republican advocate that works for the RNC where I have to have these positions or else I'm threatening some aspect of my income or my livelihood. You know, my audience looks to me to be Steven Bonnell and to have Steven Bonnell's point of view, not to be a progressive or a conservative or a liberal or whatever.
What about ego attachment to winning or losing, or do you notice or feel that in yourself?
Not much because I never lose an argument, so I don't really have to worry about the ego thing.
That could never happen.
I try to employ strategies to manage my ego, especially when I debate with so many idiots. It's very hard not to feel very egotistical sometimes, but like I try to be very careful and I try to qualify my positions very carefully when I'm having certain conversations.